各位嘉宾、各位媒体朋友，大家下午好。
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to join us in such an event for exchange between China and USA, and also release a report. And CCG wrote this report, and also CFFPD and CPAFFC given us a lot of support on that. First, please allow me to introduce the major distinguished guest. We have CCG President Wang Huiyao. We have CPAFFC President Shen Xin, and also we have CCG Vice Secretary Miao Lu. We have very leaders coming from the commercial department and also coming from the China side. We have American Chamber of Commerce in China, Alan Beebe. We have CCG, a very special senior fellow, American writer, Meryl Cavallo. American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, Kurt Gibbs. Qualcomm, Vice President Guo Tao. We have Liu Yanli, who is a Concord Medical Hospital Dean. And also we have Tsinghua University, Long Dengao. We have the press of Huanxi, Didi. And also we have Wuhan, the hematologist, Ye Baixin, and friends from the press. First, we have Wang Huiyao to deliver us a speech, please. Distinguished Director Shen Xin, all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, afternoon. And also we have friends coming from USA online. It's in the midnight. Thanks so much for taking the pressure time and to join us in such an event for exchange of the challenges analysis on the COVID-19 cooperation here.
Discussion, we conduct that in English. And
this report has gained very support coming from the China's CFFPD and CPAFFC. They have given us a lot of support on this part. The Peace Development Foundation and also the Friendship with Foreign Countries Association has given us a lot of support. We think that this report is very necessary. We have collected, analyzed a lot of data for people-to-people exchange between China and USA. And cases also we have analyzed that. And also we have collected some answers from the query papers. And also we have 1,776 of query papers collected for the answers analysis that, and 200 cases we have been analyzing on that part. We have a very in-depth interview between China and USA experts there, and just people-to-people exchange on that part. We have a lot of collection data, a lot of analysis, sorting up of the data, and based on that, with the CCG, very continuous researching on that part as a very assistance on that part based on the causes, reasons, logics of the cooperation between the two countries and to deepen the further cooperation between the two countries. And also we have some collection of suggestions on that part. You know, the COVID-19 coming to be spreading, outbreaking between China and USA, the cooperation between the two countries are very necessity there. And China and USA, the two major economies across the world, and they are complementary and also at the different stages of the COVID-19 stage. And to further cooperation between the two countries, not only very useful for fighting against the COVID-19, but also that's very crucial for cooperation enhancement and after outbreak of the diseases. And the two countries has a lot of sister country cities and the enterprises and the expert scholars and people and the students learning in abroad. And they have offered their help, offer their hand to each other during the very difficult time and challenge time, a lot of details and behaviors. We know that the borders actually is nothing compared with the connection between us. Especially the global come to such a stage, development, the cooperation of humanitarianism, not only a conception, but that's reality. Given such a very challenge here, and no country can avoid such a suffering, and no country is such an isolated island, and nobody can escape from that. if anybody want to isolate from that, that will cause worse result. As the two major economies across the globe, that the two economies are cooperating with each other very crucial for supply chain stability as well as for the value chain guarantee and to offer more drive for economic development. The cooperation between the two countries is very necessary for fighting the coronavirus that's so crucial. That's why the people-to-people cooperation between the two countries are so crucial. There are a lot of examples we can learn from between the two countries for people-to-people cooperation. And so that China and the USA are facing a lot of challenges currently, but also we think that the two countries should realize that the China and the USA relationship for the past 40 years, we have been always complementary. We have been helping each other for the past 40 years. We still have a huge potential to be further tapped. And China-USA has a very solid foundation for people-to-people in a society level. And with very friendship in the past history has shown that though there are some politicians has showed their negative attitude on that part, especially aiming at the reasons or causes, original places of coronavirus, and given something they want to they want to blame others for some like unreasonable causes, but still I think that will not change the trend for the relationship between China and USA. I think such a release of cooperation on this report and perspective of the future coronavirus fighting and starting cooperation in the further stage and trends, that is very meaningful. The first time for the people-to-people cooperation on the fighting coronavirus, in-depth analysis on this cooperation on this level, non-governmental level, people-to-people level, and we will have a discussion roundtable. And also we have Director Shen from Friendship for the Foreign Countries Association, and also we have the leaders, scholars coming from China, USA, including the USA and the American chambers in Shanghai, Beijing, China, and we have the leaders coming from American chamber, and also we have the cross-border corporations, enterprises, we have hematologists and the frontier doctors, and also we have audiences and press friends. We have scores of press friends are sitting here with me in this room. Thanks so much for joining this event. Thank you so much for your support. And we hope that through such a release a report, we will boost development for the cooperation to enhance further for the friendship between China and USA and to offer positive energy for enhancement of friendship and to do our part to fight against the coronavirus and to recover the economy in a global scale and to create new driving force for that. So we can do our part for sustainability of the human, and that's my speech. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Mr. Wang. And now we have our CPA FFCC Director, Shen Xin. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It gives great pleasure on behalf of Chinese People Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries to attend such a press conference on the report titled China-USA People-to-People Cooperation in Response to COVID-19. Report highly readable, featuring rich statistics and vivid stories, demonstrate the cooperation of people-to-people level in various sectors during the joint battle against the COVID-19 between China and USA. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank CCG's team for your great work. And my appreciation also goes to the China Friendship Foundation for Peace and Development for sponsoring such a program. In past months, we have heard many decoupling from China noises and reading quite a few articles spreading the political virus. It seems like China-US relations have entered in the dark valley where no bright prospect could be seen. Thankfully, this report speaks out for the fact that mutual assistance between the peoples of China and USA has never stopped. The forces, actors who participated and supported along for China-USA cooperation has been always strong. Mutual respect, win-win cooperation remains the right course for China-USA relations. Since the onset of the pandemic in China, American subnational governments, enterprises, and the NGOs, individuals, have rendered help to China in many ways. Ohio State in USA and Hubei province in China established first China-USA sister state relationship. When learning about outbreak of Hubei province, Ohio Development Service Agency immediately donated a batch of masks and protective seals, sent the letters of sympathies to its sister cities Shandong, Hebei, Guangdong, Fujian, Sichuan, Shanghai. Many other Chinese province cities have also received donations of medical supplies and sympathy letters from their counterparts in the United States. American Chamber members have also contributed their share. According to incomplete statistics, the total value of donations to China exceeded 500 million RMB. The friendship organizations, including national committees on USA-China relations and U.S.-China Business Council, donated medical instrument nearly around 830,000 USA dollars to Hubei in a timely manner. By the end of May, CPAFCC alone received 44.8 million RMB in cash, and medical supplies was around 30 million RMB donated from the USA. It's fair to say that USA has contributed greatly to help China fight against the pandemic at people-to-people level. The Chinese saying goes receiving drips of water when in need. I shall return the kindness with the spring. And when COVID-19 ravaged the USA, China people took immediate action to provide assistance. According to statistics incompletely, subnational government in China donated around 2 million masks, 12,500 sets of protective suits, 30,000 pairs of goggles, and other medical supplies to the USA counterparts. We have held 18 video conferences to share the anti-epidemic experience. Many NGOs, such like Jack Ma Foundation, also donated a substantial number of supplies to the USA. In the meantime, CPFCC donated medical materials worth around 10 million RMB to several USA states and organizations. In the meantime, and we made panda stickers with health advice, as well as several short videos, including Panda's one-day prevention diary and China Americans saying "You and me, thank you all, help Wuhan," to share more prevention and control knowledge to pass our friendship to American friends. Mrs. Anne Scott Tesson, Beijing Bureau Chief of Christian Science Monitor, wrote an opt called for U.S.-China groups. The advisory, the enemy is COVID-19, not a country, noting that a wide variety of American Chinese organizations, individuals are stepping into the void, and often behind the scenes and unreported, they are carrying out vital cooperation ranging from scientific exchange donations to protective equipment to financial practical support. Report released today pay tribute to those China-American organizations, individuals who silently helped, contributed to the China-U.S. non-governmental cooperation against the COVID-19. We appreciate their efforts and dedication. We thank them for bringing real warm sunshine to the dark clouds over relationship between our two countries. President Xi visited Seattle in 2015. He pointed out state-to-state relationship ultimately rely on support of people to people. With such a strong goodwill and momentum for China-U.S. cooperation, I'm sure decoupling will not be possible, and China-U.S. relationship will rise above temporary disturbances and will go further to enhance the friendship. Last but not least, I would like to share with you about two stories. During the pandemic, the online teaching platform particularly popular. Many Chinese kids learn English through the internet from American teachers who are thousands of miles away from the mainland here. One day, an American teacher found her little student sneezed with tear and thought that the kid got COVID-19. She was so upset and cried. At the end, though, she was told that the kid only caught a cold. and she insisted on sending some task to her USA office's English teaching platform, and just for helping them. And also for the next few months, Americans were trapped by the pandemic. Tens of thousands of Chinese kids sending them greeting emails to the teachers, American teachers. Another story is thank you card from Chinese girl to African American nurse. Before returning to China from USA, the little girl mother donated 5 spare masks to the local nurses and asked the little girl to write a thank you card. She said, "Mom, and I wish we could donate more tasks, just 5 masks." And then she wrote the following short but powerful line in the card. Very warm. We work the earth as brothers and sisters. That's a quotation from Martin Luther King. All these common people and stories will never become the very focus of the media, but this is because we have such ordinary people. We have always positive energy injected to the China-U.S. relationship. Despite the twists and turns, still we get along with each other peacefully. We make further contribution to sustainability for the globe. Let's never forget them. Let's pay attention to them and use the warm kind of words and actions and to triumph over hideous behaviors, lies, and animosity. That's why we wrote the report and we expect to achieve. Thank you so much for your attention. And please join us to lift the China-U.S. people-to-people cooperation into a new height. Thank you. That's a lot of Mr. Shen's a very touching speech, and I believe through the 2 speeches, especially you will know more about background of such a report, and you have more anticipation on the report. And now we have the video. We have Miao, the Vice Secretary of CCG, will release us a report. Following that, Distinguished President Wang Huiyao, distinguished Shen Xin, and distinguished excellencies, welcome to join us in the CCG. And I will release for the people-to-people cooperation in response to the current conditions, challenges, and prospect. We have selected the very thing here and as very quotation here to express our ideas. As there are differences between the nations, but actually the borders will never separating the kindness. Although that we know the virus is spreading, facing such challenges, we have separations and by the mountains of waters, but we feel the same desperation and suffering. We have same anticipation. We hope the disaster will end soon. We hope the dignity will be taken care of. We hope that under sunshine we will cry out with joy. Although that the fears may reduce the powers of individuals, but actually the kindness and rationality will help us to conquer such a fear. We will unite to fight against the virus to assure the little sparks can be turned into a very big fire. Each tiny love and contribution counts that the two nations will make for the contribution to enhance the confidence on our part. And I would like to put in 6 parts for that part. First, the background sharing. Under such a background, China and the USA and the processes characteristics. The third part mainly about the willingness to cooperate and amidst the COVID-19 based on humanitarianism friendship. The first part mainly about drivers challenges. The fifth about proposals to strengthen China-U.S. non-governmental cooperation, and sixth about overcoming challenges altogether. The first part about the background, just like I mentioned, background on China-USA non-governmental cooperation here. We know that COVID-19 pandemic has since World War II, that's become the major disaster for the public health. And IMF predicted that 3% shrinking economy in 2020. WTO warns that in 2020 pessimistic scenario that the total trading would be reduced by 1/3. In the pessimistic scenario, that 1/3 less for the trading, as WTO wants, and also a lot of lacking materials for medical equipment, and also the government between the China USA actually still not enough. A lot of politicians actually criticizing each other. They want to weaponize this as a tools and to criticize each other is really irrational. I think that the joint efforts to promote the further friendship for the human society and not only about people-to-people cooperation to enhance efficiency, but also we need to take care more about recovering economy and governance on the globe for further innovation to form a more joint force between China and USA. And let's have a sharing of the features between China and USA. First, about cooperation. The first, the China-USA, the friendship, sister province, state, sister city pairings. We know that sovereigns always show the real true friendship. I think that sister cities and sister provinces are very crucial for mutual assistance and help. A lot of sister provinces, cities actually are giving the sympathy letters and phones, videos, and they are donating to each other about materials and medical equipment and also use ways of bills and the letters, phones, videos to exchange between each other. Especially the China has been working good and control diseases, and USA is outbreaking, and we're sharing a lot of experiences how to fight the COVID-19. And we have been also discussing about recovery of the work, and actually that has been laid a very solid foundation for further recovery. Apart from that, we have always possessed effort to China-US medical staff, researchers. We believe there's no border for science and for medical services. Though a lot of politicians still are fighting against each other, but actually the medical staff has been cooperating with each other through the videos, through the exchange of information to help each other to fight against the COVID-19. And also for research, the vaccine has been always complementary between the two parts. In China, USA doctors and scientists that's actually working on cooperation, on working on research on the vaccines, which has been the full spectrum of foundation research and structural research, as well as for solutions, for remedies for the futures, for testing, for solutions seeking. We have been working on that part of cooperation. And also for the overseas Chinese students in the USA we call it like a full field fighting. And first we have the first half of the field, just like the sport field. Like we have first half, we have second round, first half round, the full run. First half run, the Chinese people has donated a lot of materials, medical equipment to China through the like the classmates and the associations, societies, and for the professions and careers, and through a lot of channels donate these materials to China. For second round, that the USA has coming to become more and more severe for the outbreaking of a virus. A lot of the Chinese students in USA, as well as for a lot of Chinese Americans, to build networks and to drive more Chinese power to donate more into USA and to help operate in a more transparent as well as more mature way to operate, to donate a lot of materials for the senior care centers as well as communities. The third part, we always try to avoid bias and criticize. A lot of some American people actually has a lot of bias on Chinese people. They have been misguided by the fake news, a lot of deterioration in the environment. But given such a very obstacles, but a lot of Chinese students and Chinese Americans are still respond to this bias, criticize, and by kindness and courage to make their contribution in our part. And now let's say about the China and USA chamber business communities, as they are shouldering responsibility very actively. First, the power enterprises. I know that enterprises will always be playing a very crucial part for the people-to-people exchange on that part, given such a very diseases, and not only donating about materials and the equipment, but also they play full role on allocation resources, especially for capitals, technologies, organization, work. According to the Academy statistics to February 17th, there are around 103 enterprises from USA to donate to China. Totally, that's 538 million RMB. That's totally around 25.74% of total donation. That's top one for foreign enterprise donation proportion. And the commercial chambers power is very crucial as a bonding, as a very belt connecting China and USA and building a channel for a lot of scattered resources and enterprises to join them to ensure all these enterprises scattered can work together. Has been very good leadership and guideline there, guiding there. And that's why we invited the American Chamber, China Chamber commerce here is very crucial. The third part, technology power is very crucial, of course, and we know that American Chamber has a very featured. There are a lot of very high-tech corporations in AI, big data corporations, and they have been playing a very important role there to fight against the COVID-19 for that. That's why we invited Qualcomm and Ali and Tencent. They are playing a very important role here for COVID-19 fighting. Apart from what I have mentioned about the several entities in here, our China American think tanks and scholars, and they are always giving their voices, and they are always to assure other people can hear the voices and never try to be hidden from the truth. So we have three major open letters has been given by the Chinese and the USA scholars, and offer such an open letter to the people of the United States from 100 Chinese scholars to sign all together that part. Though a little bit difference on the ideas, but actually the goal is the same, to fighting against the COVID-19. The second part is two rails of the concentrations on the communication on that part of this COVID-19 fighting, which is very crucial for this condensation of ideas and to keep very frequent communication, very important positive role that part. Another part for philanthropies are very crucial. Charities, I use a lot of a very key word I would like to say that's very flexible and very high active and very high effective. And they have a very advantages using humanitarianism and embodiment of that part. We have high efficiency there for fighting against the COVID-19. As we can see that pictures, as you can see very clear on the Bill Gates foundations and the fund, especially for the Chinese featured other corporations, also play a very important part for donation, for philanthropy. And also we have a lot of thousands of individuals like use small drops of the waters has been turning into a river of love, like flowing between the two countries, especially facing a lot of doubts and suspicions across the global communities for a lot of the Chinese Americans and American Chinese here. And that's why we have Mario Cavallo, and he is a very awesome and very representative. And he has wrote a paper on the LinkedIn and to share with the stories for fighting against the COVID-19 to let the people know more about a real story in China. That's very crucial for people understanding China. And also, like Director Shen has mentioned about the letters from the Chinese small girls and quotation from Martin Luther King. We walk the earth as the brother sister. And for conclusion, for the China-USA, for five major features. The first, especially for different levels, government, the scholars, and across different levels, and for the foundations, governments, and complementary departments, and to learn from each other, to help each other. There are multiple actors, cooperation. Also, we have scholars and different roles there. And for people-to-people communication, they have a wide coverage for multi-layers relationship between each other. As we know, a lot of fighting against virus need multi-angles cooperation between each other, including about research on sciences, materials, and researching, sharing, donations for the public interest. Transportation also a very important part of that. And all are taking the full use of resources from the people level. That's very important. Another part, we have reachable resources and precise assistance in that part. And we have full resources of human resources and technology resources, information resources, smart tank resources has been taken full use by people-to-people cooperation. That's why we would like to say that's reachable resources. The first part, because it's people-to-people communication, is about the human kindness is mainly about like very earthy or very practical and to show the positive power of kindness. And the first part is like full spectrum cooperation for the people-to-people cooperation between China and USA, a very injecting positive energy for government relationship between the China and USA. The third part in our report is mainly about the China-USA willingness to cooperate amidst the COVID-19, which is based on the humanitarianism and friendship traditionally. We have made our very query, basically that from China, USA, and we have 1,776 of the query papers. And basically, most of them support for cooperation. And 98.4% of answers think that we should help each other. 97.5% think that apart from government cooperation, people-to-people cooperation are very crucial. And also for supporters on cooperation between China and USA, that's 96.7% are supporting cooperation between China and USA on that part. And 20.8% show they do not understand a lot on China-USA civil level donations of resources and assets. And I would like to show you on that part, we should call more to improve awareness. And 83.85% of answers think that China-USA relationship actually has been negative impact on cooperation on fighting the COVID-19, and 95% of the interviewers think that China-USA should enhance cooperation. 84.44% and people-to-people cooperation should that we can be more positive. 44% of answers think answer that they have been getting engaged into such they have been showing very positive attitude very clearly to join in the cooperation. 66.03% of answers think show they have experience, they have the attitude to join in the positive cooperation between China and US. They have willingness, 66% has a willingness to join in cooperation for practical deeds. I think that China-USA cooperation on that part is very useful for friendship enhancement, but also very helpful for the relationship between the China-USA and for fighting the coronavirus. And mainly from the USA people level analysis, we have 3 parts analysis. On part, USA citizens. First, mainly about the demand, the practical level, because America has the most severe impact coming from the impacted a lot by the most severe damaged places. I want to have more support from China for the material. Second, if we know more about the globalization, a lot of scholars and the very statesman in USA actually has rational understanding of that part. They hope through cooperation between China and USA to maintain the image of USA. They have more rational ideas. A third part, a humanitarianism and the kindness, especially for the Chinese Americans, American Chinese, is that they have a lot of understanding on how important their home is, and they love their homes, so they give donations to their homes. But also that's very important for responsibility. That's why we would like to conclude about the rationality, humanitarianism, reasonness, restraint, and that part, and discipline that part. The second part, and for the motivations of Chinese citizens here to cooperate with that, and Chinese saying is that life is always paramount. And after the outbreak and diseases, though a lot of USA politicians has been weaponized COVID-19 topic and based on this part, but though for Chinese people, saving more lives for USA, that's more important than anything else. To buffering, to fight against COVID-19 USA, that's more crucial for Chinese people to save more American lives. And we have a very history to show examples of helping each other between China and USA for more than 10 years of cross-cultures exchanges. We have very solid foundations on the history. We know there are very advanced examples between the two countries, like very early stages about ping pong ball diplomatic relationship and about the flying tigers for assistance of the China for the fighters in the sky for, and also for religions in Chinese culture has been impacted a lot by the USA religion. And for China, or China Confucianism about love the people, like you love yourself, and also take care of the elder people, like take care of your own parents or your seniors, and all the spirit actually has been spreading for humanitarianism, for international kindness. The difference between the two cultures and complementary between the two cultures, it can be a very positive foundation for the two nations, we think. And analysis of the challenges and the drivers for China-USA cooperation, we have a lot of challenges here in front of us. First, the governance systems are very lagging behind, and China-USA cooperation actually are standing on the cross road, watershed, and WHO a very crucial system there. And there are a lot of problems happening for WHO. Actually, WHO rules for a lot of countries is not mandatory, as they are trying to persuading others to obey the rules. It's not mandatory, but to some extent that cause a lot of countries do not obey the rules for WHO. They do not to be actively responsible for WHO. That's why multilateral cooperation that part become very hard for that part. And one is that a lot of countries realize we should rely more on each other. We have come to such a stage of relying on each other more. And a lot of countries actually try to fighting for themselves, and that will become another watershed. The anti-globalization will be very negative impact on the cooperation for people-to-people cooperation. That will be very damage for the two countries. The challenges there. The second part, up and downs for China-US relationship affect non-government exchanges. The China-USA to control the virus and to stabilize the economy, taking a lot of necessary measures. And we know that popularism coming to be rising, which has become new barriers to that part. Apart from that, the novel coronavirus has become very major barriers for China-USA negotiation for the trading recovery. And also the one real communication is not enough. We have two reals, one real government and non-government, another real. So we think that governments are very important drivers, but actually the China-USA government cooperation is not enough, because uncertainties line there between the government and government cooperation, which become barrier for people-to-people cooperation. And the pathways for local cooperation has been constrained, especially for a lot of state-to-state level, city-to-city level cooperation, a very major base for the two countries, impacted a lot by the environment as well as for the situations of the lagging behind of the construction of cities, and the activeness actually has been reduced to further cooperation between the China cities of friendship. That would be very important foundation for the future cooperation. The first, that damaged global value chains, because the challenge for China-US economy has been damaged a lot. The fragility of the value chains has been a very obvious. A lot of cooperation between China for enterprises and for commercial level, and for these sectors has been meeting a lot of barriers and obstacles, but actually we can see there are such a strong willingness for enterprises and the Chinese enterprises and USA enterprises, and we need to conquer that barriers. Last not least, for the proposal to strengthen the cooperation, first, we hope we can stop spread political virus. We should focus more on anti-epidemic cooperation. We should stop spreading a political virus to focus on anti-pandemic cooperation, especially for China and the USA scholars and for the infected people should give their voice and to enhance the cooperation and to enhance awareness of that part. Second, for researchers as well as for pharmaceutical corporations, they should enhance more on cooperation in vaccine researching, especially the China and the USA is researching on the vaccines are very crucial. China-USA cooperations on the pharmacies are very crucial to enhance researching proceeding on the vaccines and the medicines, and to realize the big-scale production. And also, apart from that, we hope we can turn that into the public product to curb the virus. The third, we should strengthen China-US sister city network cooperation to establish the one-to-one assistance mechanisms. And China's National Health Department has good relationship for like 17 provinces assisting Wuhan. We have such experience, and we can have like one city to assisting another city in USA. So we have experienced that part. We can do that. And the first, that cooperation to establish the anti-epidemic and provide more joint help to developing countries, and we can play full role of the foundations and fund to ensure we can have more allocation resources allocated there. The second part, apart from about prevention, cooperation on this coronavirus, basically, we hope that China-USA can enhance cooperation on economy to revitalize global economy development. We should enhance the China-US local economy cooperation via sister city. After this coronavirus, and based on the two countries, we should take full use of the private power and to enhance the cooperation on economy level. And also, we need to strengthen economic cooperation on digital sector, and that is a new driving force for economy recovery. We know that digital economy has a lot of windows, including the online meetings, webinars, and educations, and remote medical care, and remote office has become a new normal situations, and we should take full use of such a window to make further contribution for recovery of the economy. And we should strengthen economic cooperation to protect global value chains. Facing the novel coronavirus, global value chains has been transferred and restructured, and China-USA corporations should play the full role to maintain the global chain stability and to shoulder their responsibility and to be the ambassador for China-USA cooperation. The third part we call non-governmental exchanges, multi-fields, deepening mutual understanding between the people, China and USA. We suggest to establish a double-track diplomacy mechanism for China and US think tanks to increase opportunities of dialogue between the two countries. For double-track cooperation, and to boost the development cooperation, governmental level and people-to-people level communication. The second part, increase exchange in various fields, including tourism, education, humanities, deepen the mutual understanding and trust, to enhance communication, enhance willingness to cooperate, such like the year of American tourism, and to use the recording videos and movies to enhance more awareness and understanding between the people-to-people in USA and China. The third, which enhance communication, enhance willingness to cooperate. During the cooperation between the China and USA, though we have a lot of bad news, good news, a lot of criticisms, and some praising there. But we should have more communication on our part. In this way, they have more willingness on fighting against the virus through cooperation. As my introduction, last and not least, I would like to conclude that part. We call China-USA join hands and to overcoming challenges all together, like saying we are on the same boat. The contributions has been paid by the two countries not only save a lot of lives, but also has been very positive for the cooperation. We have mentioned a lot of entities, including sister cities, medical staff for the Chinese Americans and American Chinese, for commercial sectors, smart tanks, scholars, and non-governmental think tanks, no matter about the materials, practical support, but also about exchange of the appearances, which all show humanitarianism, which all show the love and sincerity, friendship between the two countries. Given such a background, we think that is very fit with vigor for the future development. Though we have cultural differences, though we have very differences on the culture, but we have huge potential for future development and cooperation. Facing such severe challenges, our two countries should conquer such barriers to fight against the COVID-19, join hands, and stay on the same boat to fight against the COVID-19 to realize recovery economy and to realize the full awareness of people. That's our conclusion. We call, that's the conclusion from us and call from us, and also call everybody to support further on that. Thank you. Secretary Miao. After sharing the report, after hearing from Miao, and we have a lot of collection data there, and we have a lot of analysis of that report. And through such queries and the collection analysis, we want to give more voice to further the cooperation. And now we come to discussion session. And now Wang Huiyao, you will be the moderator for the session.
OK， 好的，那下面呢，我们就开始我们的这个研讨环节哈。
Now we will have a discussion session, panel session, and welcome our online audiences. And thanks a lot for directions sitting here for the opening speech. And Shen is a very senior fellow and very expert in this part. And for the people-to-people communication, people-to-people relationship, he knows a lot of that part. He has a lot of experience, and he knows a lot in China, Euros, and China-USA. He has been very expert in this field. Opening speech from him is very significant and meaningful. And also we have expert sitting here. Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot for introduction from Dr. Miao. Because this conference is most of sitting here from the American, so we will use English to have a panel session for mutual discussion. And so our online American friends will be very convenient to discuss with me. We have China and USA version through translation.
Discussion for this portion in English because we have so many guests from our American friends here. So this is really great. We have I would like to just introduce the panelists actually on our panel today, participating this afternoon. First is the Alan Beebe. He's the president of American Chamber of Commerce in China, AmCham China. He's in our online already. And I just introduced according to this alphabetic order. And then Mario Cavolo, CEO of M Communication and also a CCG Senior Fellow. And we have actually another Kurt Gibbs, Mr. Kurt Gibbs, President AmCham Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai, AmCham Shanghai. He's with us as well. Welcome. And we also will be joined by Dr. Liu Yanli, who's the professor and the dean of Peking Union School of Public Health in Beijing. And we have Professor Long Donggao. He's the president, he's the director, Center for China Entrepreneurial Study, Tsinghua University, a well-known professor in China. And also I saw Dean Liu Yanli as well. Thank you for that. And we have Ms. Didi Nicholson, who's the producer, advisor of Huaxin Media Group. She's actually in the U.S. She's already quite late. Thank you for staying up so late. And we have Mr. Ye, Dr. Ye Baixin. He's the hematologist at Renmin Hospital at Wuhan, right from Wuhan, actually. So we have actually very interesting panel. We have so we actually, the topic of today is basically to talk about how to, around our topic is the China-U.S. non-government cooperation in response to COVID-19. So we have released this report, and we have all the players actually well represented at our panel. So I would like to, without further ado, I'd like to carry on directly into our discussion. And I know that AmCham is doing quite a lot, and I'd like to have Alan Beebe to speak first. Alan Beebe actually has been the president of AmCham China for many years, and he actually has over 25 years of managerial experience in the managerial sector, over 15 years in China, so that's quite long. And so as the president of the chamber, Alan monitors all the policy angles, research, all the helping all his member companies, almost 1,000 member companies in China. And so he has actually many rich experience. So Alan, I know that the AmCham has done a lot in terms of with China-U.S. non-government collaboration. So perhaps from business angle, you may want to share us first. So we have maybe each person 7-8 minutes, and then we really want you to go ahead. Alan, please.
Great. Well, thank you, Henry, and it's a pleasure to be with you here this afternoon. Before I begin, I just want to confirm that everybody can hear me fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, yes. So thank you again for all of the investment and effort, to develop this report, which I think we would all agree is essential to basically to document and most importantly learn from the lessons that we've all gone through for the last roughly 6 months, and how do we apply those going forward. And I am based in Beijing, so we, of course, have a very close working relationship with the Center for China and Globalization. But unfortunately, it's all been online year to date. So, Henry, I look forward to getting together in person as soon as possible. So I'd also like to thank the China's People Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries, or CPA-FFC, where we also have a long-standing partnership. In fact, we recently met with the new president, Lin Zhongtian, who has taken over from Li Xiaolin, who's done an excellent job leading Yoxie. And then finally, I'm so pleased to have my colleague from AmCham in Shanghai, Kurt Gibbs, and I'm sure he'll have many points that will probably be somewhat similar, to what I provide. But I think what I'll try to do is to really focus on what we see here in Beijing, as well as in our chapter in Wuhan, which of course was, where the epidemic first broke out. So I'd like to touch today on three broad areas. First is just our experience as AmCham China during the early days of the epidemic, which is now, a pandemic, especially given that we do have a chapter in Wuhan with approximately 50 companies and several staff. Secondly, I'll talk about the efforts that we have provided in April and the May and even in the June timeframe to support those in need on the front line in the United States, where we led a volunteer effort to provide much needed PPE equipment and gear to the United States. And then finally, I'd like to touch on some of the challenges and the lessons learned that we've had over these first 6 months, these most eventful 6 months, that can hopefully both help us to reflect on what's worked and what hasn't worked. And then more importantly, how do we apply those lessons to work more closely and collaboratively in the future? So as far as the first point, in terms of our experience during the first several months of the outbreak, we provided through our member companies approximately 600 million RMB worth of PPE equipment, gear, and financial donations. And I did notice that you included that in the report. I would say that that number is by far too conservative. So that's just what we've been able to capture and probably what you've been able to capture. But I think if you would, kind of look very holistically at all the contributions that American companies, regardless of location, have contributed, to China, I'm sure the number is many times, that amount that, that I've quoted of 600 million RMB. Secondly, is that once those really in the early stages in January and February into March, where the epidemic was at its peak, once that sort of subsided a bit, we worked very closely with local authorities, of course, in Hubei and other parts of the country to help our member companies resume work. And there were many, many, many challenges that all companies faced, including, of course, American companies. And I would say, generally speaking, the Chinese government at the local level did a really good job in terms of trying to get companies back to work, while at the same time balancing the concerns of public health. And then third, one of the things that we have done and we continue to do is to provide a monthly survey of our nearly 1,000 member companies to assess what is the impact and the ongoing impact that COVID-19 is having on their businesses, whether that be in terms of their financial performance, whether that be in terms of their supply chains and travel. And I would just sort of say, in summary, there's no doubt that COVID-19 is going to, or is already impacting the financial performance of our member companies in greater or lesser degrees. And that'll continue to be the case this year. And we're already looking forward to next year, where, of course, now the global pandemic has taken foothold and companies are really looking at the China market opportunity within the context of what's happening globally. And I would say the number one challenge continues to be our expatriate and our member company executives that are stuck overseas, that have not been able to return. And we estimate, at least just for our chamber, and I'm sure Per Gibbs in Shanghai can elaborate on what he sees, but we estimate that we have about 10,000 people, whether those be expatriates, their dependents, school educators, healthcare workers, etc., that are stuck abroad and really working to get back, to China, and I should say back home to China, even though they're foreigners. They've lived in China in many cases for many years, just like myself, and they just want to come home. So that's been a real challenge and continues to be a challenge. The second area I'd like to talk about is the efforts that we've made to provide PPE to the United States. Back in April, I believe, we organized a volunteer effort from among our member companies to source, qualify, and ship PPE to the United States. And we cooperated quite closely with the U.S. Embassy and the different areas of Chinese government to identify suppliers and resolve many of the roadblocks and challenges, whether that be in terms of standards or certification and logistics and other concerns. And I can tell you it was very challenging. I'm sure, Kerr may want to elaborate on that. So while we had some successes, I'd like to talk actually more about some of the challenges that we uncovered during that period, because this is not going to go away. I think one of the learnings globally that all countries have really had is that their supply chains need to be ready, whether this is for COVID-19 or for future, public health situations. So what we discovered, there was a really significant mismatch between the supply and the demand. Second is that just understanding who supplies which product and where it could be found. And I would say that we did find that there were some fake, some unreliable suppliers out there, so that we worked to help buyers in the United States to kind of qualify those suppliers. And then also all the aspects of contract fulfillment. Certifications and standards was really a huge there's really no common standards or certification that apply globally. So that was just something that we had to really work through. And then of course, finally, once you did have a product sourced, how did you actually get it to clear customs, both in China and in the United States, and to manage all the transportation to finally get it to the frontline workers. So I would say that was a really big challenge, and frankly, it was just an aspect that surprised me because there was so much need, but it just took too long, for products to get to the front line. So finally, I just like to wrap up with what I've sort of observed as some of the general challenges and the lessons learned from this experience over the last half year. So first is around information. I would say at least half of our job and half of what we have been doing is just providing information, sourcing it, verifying it, and then communicating it. So the availability of information, the transparency of information, that was a big challenge that I think needs to be improved. And that's both in China and in the United States. And in the United States, as an example, how do you coordinate, all the different signals that are coming at the federal level versus at the state level? Secondly is just around collaboration. And I think, for the most part, everybody's well-intentioned, but really, aligning all of the various interests, whether they be from government, from NGOs, from companies, in a way that was most efficient. So there's kind of a fair amount of duplication of effort out there that I think if we are going forward, if there's ways that we could coordinate more effectively. And then finally, let's not forget that COVID-19 doesn't recognize politics. It doesn't recognize borders. This is a matter of science. And, unfortunately, I think, we've seen and we continue to see national interest and, politics entering into the fray, whether that between the U.S. and China or with other countries. So I think that's something that we need to continue to work on, especially as non-governmental organizations, to really focus on human lives, human health, and, and the economics, trying to basically minimize the impact that this has had on the economy and will continue to have on the economy. So then finally, what we're doing in the next half of this year, basically through the rest of 2020, is to focus on social impact. So beyond, just financial donations, what are the ways that our member companies can support China in the areas of public health reform and revitalizing small, medium-sized enterprises? So why don't I stop there? And I think I'm just beyond my time here. So let me turn things back over to you, Henry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Al, for a great presentation and introduction. Yeah, we're very pleased to know that AmCham actually has already donated exceeding 600 million RMB, which is also still very conservative. Well, we'll reflect that in our report on our online for that as well. And I thank you for also mention that some of the things that business to business, particularly, it's very surprised to hear there's about 10,000 U.S. business executives and related staff would like to come back, and I think that's very important to support the business exchanges on the business to business sector. So I think this will be noticed at this meeting, I'm sure of, and I really appreciate all your great comments, and particularly you said the virus knows no border and knows no politics, and we should really concentrate on those good things that we've been doing right and all together. So thank you again, Alan. Now I'd like to have also, we have Mr. Kurt Gibbs. I mean, we heard AmCham from a national level, but AmCham Shanghai is also a very important part of the work as well. I know Kurt Gibbs has been now the president of AmCham Shanghai, and you've been in China and Asia since 1985. So it's quite a long time. So you have been in many companies and have a lot of experience. So why not you? We just continue this business part, and you give us your perspective from Shanghai, AmCham.
Yes, thank you very much, Henry. Appreciate the opportunity. And yeah, I think it does make sense for me to speak right after Al, just so that I can, in the interest of time, I know we have a lot of speakers today, so in the interest of time, I'll just sort of fill in some things that are in addition to what Al Bibi had mentioned. But first of all, yeah, I'm delighted to be here. And I want to thank the CCG for organizing today's event and inviting AmCham Shanghai to participate. I also want to thank Professor Wang and Madam Yao and yourself, Henry, and others in the CCG leadership for all the important work that you do. Also, similar to Al, with AmCham China, we also work very closely with the CPA FFC. As a matter of fact, here in Shanghai, and as a matter of fact, Ambassador Shah with the CPA FFC just invited me to enjoy Shanghai Disney over the weekend, and so I appreciate we had a lot of fun out there at Disneyland over the weekend. So that was terrific. We do have a great cooperative relationship with that organization and many others. Also, since there are many organizations here, and also since you just heard from Al, I do want to clear up any possible confusion that there might be. AmCham Shanghai is one of the 4 independent AmChams that we have here in mainland China. We all work together, of course, but we are independent. And my good friend Al Bibi represents one, I represent another. Shanghai being Shanghai as the commercial center of China, naturally we're quite large. So we have over 1,500 companies represented in AmCham Shanghai and about 3,000 individuals as part of our organization. Overall, again, just in the interest of time, I think our experience is similar to Al's, and also quite consistent with the overall conclusions of the CCG report. Just to give a quick summary of where we are on the PPE question, because I was asked to summarize that. I took a little bit different approach to Al on the question, and I interpreted it more, and I completely agree with him. I think if you include all of the activities of all of our member companies, the total volume is enormous in terms of PPE that went in both directions. I interpreted the question just a little bit differently and focused on really the specific activities that AmCham Shanghai was specifically responsible for, and thought I'd just kind of detail that and quantify it for your audience here. But again, we got involved very early in the crisis, and again when PPE was required to get into China in the early parts of the pandemic in January and February timeframe, our focus was on that and actually shipping PPE from the United States into Wuhan. And so we were involved in that, and then quickly shifted the focus of our efforts going in the other direction when the pandemic spread to the United States. So just to quantify it for you, AmCham Shanghai was responsible for filling 4 cargo planes with personal protective equipment shipped from China to the United States as part of our efforts. And then also we raised direct donations actually from our membership for financial contributions. So pretty similar efforts to our sister organization up there in Beijing. I do want to mention a couple of the partners that were key in this effort. First, our cargo planes were donated by Amazon Air. So that's one of our members, and they provided the air cargo capacity, which was really critical. On logistics, we worked with Asian Tigers, which was a terrific partner for us. Other partners that we worked with include Thermo Fisher Scientific, as well as NYU Langone Hospital and others. Quick note, similar to what Al mentioned, I mean, we also maintained a list of PPE suppliers, and as he mentioned, it was a nightmare. I mean, it was extremely difficult, and we also worked with FEMA to try to vet those lists. And I do want to make a quick comment about that. I mean, I think China, those of us who have worked in China and have benefited a lot from the growth here in China, and it's been a frustrating place, because I think China sometimes gets a bad rap. I mean, I think there was an emergency situation where we were all in a rush to get PPE equipment and ventilators out of China and into the hospitals, but then that naturally led to bad acts, some of which were innocent in intention, but things that happened because everybody was in a hurry. Others are not so much so good intentions, but I think whenever something like that happens, when there's a shipment of, say, quote unquote, counterfeit PPE, you know, the headline is always, China is shipping counterfeit PPE. And I just want to draw a contrast, right? So, and again, I don't want to mean to single out any one country, but recently there was an enormous, a very egregious act of fraud that was committed by a company in Germany. And the headline was all about, and I don't want to name the name, but the headline was all about that particular company name, and rightfully so. It was the company that committed the bad act. It wasn't Germany. But you notice how the headline is not Germany is committing this bad act. It's that company, where China, for some reason, and this is one of the frustrations that people, that foreigners here, you know, have with global media, frankly, as anything that comes out of China, it's always China has committed this bad act as opposed to an individual bad act. And I think that was part of what we were fighting against in the COVID pandemic situation, where we did have a real struggle here with customs, so the regulations naturally really clamped down and made it difficult to get things out, because people were correctly protective of reputation. So that's been a struggle. The other comment, I think just overall, I won't go into a lot of detail. I think Al covered it fairly well, but overall, the level of coordination and cooperation that we felt at the subnational level, again, very consistent with the CCG report, really has been excellent, I would say. Our cooperation with local government here, both on the Chinese side and the U.S. side, was really extraordinary straight through the pandemic situation. And you know, we were deeply involved in that in terms of converting the AmCham platform into an information sharing platform to get accurate information and up-to-date information out to our members. I do also want to point out, while I have a very positive message in terms of the subnational level of cooperation and performance, I would point out that we are disappointed at the national level that, again, both our governments don't seem to appreciate the global nature of this threat. There's far too much finger pointing and uncooperative behavior, really, on both sides. And this is being seen as a quote unquote China problem or a US problem, whereas in reality, it's very much a global problem, and it's a human problem. And really, the faster our national governments can recognize that, the better equipped we are going to be to fight this pandemic and prepare for the next one. So we'll end there, and happy to take questions later on. Thank you, Henry.
Okay, thank you, Keir, for also quite comprehensive an angle from a business community, AmCham Shanghai. We didn't realize that also you have done also quite a lot of work and among the Shanghai members. So please send us some of that. We would like to add into our report for all the great work you've been doing. I agree with you that in terms of standards, qualifications, probably we need to do work on both sides. And also, you're right. We also very unfortunate to see the name calling. If it's a company for rather than it's a country problem. So you're very right to point out that. So thank you and appreciate that. Now I hope that Professor Liu is online, and we've now seen the business community. We'll see the all the medical professional community, which are doing a great job in this pandemic fighting as well. And Professor Liu and Li, I mean, also is a good friend, and he's. I know him when he was at Harvard many years ago, and he's also now the dean of Peking Union Medical College Public Health Institute, and also being an adjunct professor at the Tsinghua University for many years as well. So you have a lot of experience. I know you've been invited to give a lot of talks. So in terms of China-U.S., I mean, I know that one dates back when you were in Harvard, you have already conducted many Sino-U.S. medical seminars and conferences. So you know quite a lot of this China-U.S. Medical and professional exchanges. Why don't you give us some your thoughts and comment on our report? Thank you, Professor Liu.
Okay. Thank you, Hui Yao. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah. I'm very delighted to join you in this very important conversation about U.S.-China relations. I like to start by telling you that my mother and sister live in Wuhan, and my wife and kids are living in Boston. So this COVID-19 pandemic is a very personal experience for me, and promoting the U.S.-China relation and the dialogue and the collaboration has been every bit of a family business, if you will, because both my wife and I have worked at Harvard as faculty member for many years before I returned back to China full-time on 2013. But my wife stayed on working at Harvard Medical School and also served as a president, as Secretary General of the U.S.-China Health Summit, which is the annual gathering of the great minds in health field from both countries ever since 2011. Now, I just want to mention two fronts. On my front, serving as the Dean of the School of Public Health at China's leading medical institution. The full name of my university is Chinese Academy of Medical Sciences and the Peking Union Medical College. And the college was created actually 100 years ago by the Rockefeller Foundation, the symbol of the U.S.-China relationship in good years, in good times. Now, ever since the outbreak of the COVID-19, actually, I caught on the last flight from Boston to Beijing on February 2nd. The next day, all the flights all stopped. So I have been working in three areas. First, I created a policy research group at my university, and we provided a dozen policy recommendations to the policymakers addressing the major bottleneck issues in confronting the public health emergencies. And secondly, I find my work actually going through two distinct phases. The first phase, because everything in China was in such a chaos, so we found ourselves spending hours and days and nights trying to synthesizing the best practice international experiences and bring them to bear on helping inform the Chinese policymakers. That's the first phase. For example, I organized my students to translate the U.S. CDC guidelines, for dealing with public health emergencies. Now, quickly we found we have to, change our focus from, bringing in international experiences to help inform the China's fight to the other way around, because this is dealing with any novel infectious disease is just like fighting a terrorist attack, right? You don't know how many cells, and you don't know where they are. And the first responders naturally became the masters of the fighters of the second or third wave of this pandemic. So many countries are looking for experiences, both in terms of the public health measures as well as the clinical experiences. We know that Wuhan was the first epicenter of this pandemic, and we sent in more than 42,000 medical workers, consisting more than 300 medical teams from around the country, the best medical teams. So in that process, China has learned quite a lot. First we learned this is a very complicated disease. It's not just a respiratory disease, attack the many organs, systems, and so on and so forth. And how to treat, preventing the patients from mild to severe conditions. And China went through 7 editions of revision of the clinical guidelines. So I moderated more than 1,000 international webinars where we have the hospital CEOs, the public health officials from China, from different countries, from different cities and provinces, to have a dialogue with their international counterparts. In particularly, Peking Union Medical College officially organized 2 China-Germany webinar on confronting COVID-19. And we featured President Wang Chen, who really has been the clinical leader from day one in Wuhan and returned back to Beijing as a hero. And we also featured Gao Fu, the China CDC director, to talk about the Chinese experiences. So that's what we have been doing. And also, of course, I personally was invited often to give lectures online to American universities, to our American faculty members, as well as American students. So that's what I have been doing. Now, my wife, serving as a president and of the U.S.-China Health Summit based in Boston, she has been organized a volunteer group from MIT, Harvard, and the greater Boston area to do basically 2 major things. One is to publicize a special research report, on the current situations of COVID-19 in China, U.S., and around the world. And for example, they already published the COVID-19 Daily. Now I think the latest 75th edition of COVID-19 Daily. So that's a briefing, and also a themed research report, a series, themed research report. And also, U.S.-China Health Summit has been organizing weekly webinars, inviting both the American and the Chinese scientists to share with the general public what's the cutting edge, what's the latest status of the science, because ultimately science will save the world. So everybody is very curious about where science is going right now. And secondly, working together with Huang Yasheng and the old friend Hui Yao, you may know well. They created in Boston a global alliance against the COVID-19, responsible for organizing not only the academic discussions but also practical aids. For example, providing PPEs to the under-equipped hospitals and areas in United States. Okay, so a lot of interesting and important things have been done. Now, I like to, I don't want to give you a laundry list what we have been doing, but I'm very happy to report that what we have been doing really have been fully utilized by the communities of policymaking as well as practice. For example, I was frequently invited to participate in daily analysis of a COVID-19 pandemic in the capital city of Beijing by working together closely with the Beijing authorities. And the Beijing authority, having read some of the COVID-19 daily or themed research reports from the U.S.-China Health Summit, they would ask for more in-depth analysis of a particular issue. For example, the border control. How can that be, done in a very scientific, while efficient way? Because you have to balance the COVID-19 control and also keeping a minimum open of the traffic, not only of the goods but also human. And so that's a very delicate issue, and the scientists can be brought to bear on solving these issues. But I'm happy also to report that also I like to basically, in a nutshell, to summarize by pointing out two things. In fighting this special world war against our common enemy, COVID-19 or the SARS-CoV-2, the virus, that we only have one enemy. Really, we are not enemies of each other, right? We are really fellow soldiers on the united front, because the previous speakers repeatedly pointed out that this is a global war, and nobody will be spared, and no country can win until every country wins in the end. Now, so collaboration and dialogue among the scientists, I think, is very important. We'll continue doing so. So that's one point. But second point is information science is important, but not sufficient, not enough. And we need really enlightened, informed leadership. I'm happy to report that as a scholar returned back from the United States, I think my expertise was fully utilized here. And China, in my view, has been practicing really an evidence-based policymaking process. And they brought recently, example is President Xi personally chaired an expert committee dialogue. 7 leading public health and emergency response and the legal experts, provided briefings to him, and he listened very attentively, and then and struck a very constructive conversation, dialogue, a lively dialogue with scientists and so on and so forth. And that kind of interaction between scientists and policymakers has been going on a daily basis in China, really. But look at the United States. I'm very sad. I would be the last one to expect that the United States would become the new epicenter of the pandemic, with the confirmed cases exceeding 2 million and the deaths toll over 120,000. Come on, this is the richest country in the world, and with the largest reservoir of the scientists but the scientists in the United States nowadays are often sidestepped, and we are very disappointed, and to see that the politics got tangled with this fight. We are talking about human lives and not about politics. And also, I'm also disappointed about the fact that sometimes we invited a leading public expert from the United States to have a dialogue with us, and at the last minute, he said, "Sorry, my old buddy, due to political pressure, I cannot appear at your forum." So I thought United States is the most open, where scientists, find most at home, but we would come to that, and that the consequences of ignoring the reasonable dialogue, open dialogue among the scientists is obvious and is very disconcerting. So I really hope that we will continue to, of course, scientists will try their best, but I really hope that United States will come back again soon to the country where for the people, of the people, and by the people is the practice, is not just the lip service.
Okay.
So
okay.
that's my sense of words
okay.
of input.
Okay, thank you, Yuan Li, Professor Yuan Li, for your comprehensive talk. And I think you have talked from the medical community, which I think is vital, scientists, the community, how to join hands together and fighting this pandemic, and particularly among the U.S. and China. So I think we have more reasons to collaborate than to disagree. So thank you for your share on that. Actually, talking about the U.S., we have a well-known lady right here in the U.S. Already. I mean, I'm apologize for keeping you late, but I want you to probably share also from your U.S. perspective. Actually, you are now in the U.S., which is Madame Didi Nicholson. She's the, as I said, works with the producer advisor of Washington Media Group, but also as the on the board member of Duke Queensland University, where you and I met as well. So why don't you, thank you for your patience, Didi, you can go ahead to share your perspective. I would also invite Professor 龙登高龙登高教授哈，这个下面那个 So Didi, why don't you go ahead?
Sure. Just to clarify, I'm actually producing a series and films with Disney Plus, and I advise Huanqi Media. That's my professional job. On the sort of healthcare side of things and educational side of things, I do a lot of philanthropic activities. And I just wanted to say from the outset, in terms of non-governmental organizations, they have played a critical role in COVID from beginning to today. By the way, thank you to CCG and to 中国友好协会 for organizing this. I think this kind of collaboration is extremely important now when there's kind of a breakdown in government-to-government relations and media relations. And obviously in this country right now, you see the lack of leadership at the national level and really where the management of the pandemic has been concerned, it's happening at the state level. So I was in Los Angeles from January to the end of March. But I first really got the first knowledge I had of the pandemic came on a call with an organization called the Wellcome Trust. The Wellcome Trust is part of the CEPI, the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness Innovations, which is the Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust. This organization was formed in 2017. Wellcome Trust is a UK organization. Gates is obviously a US organization. Wellcome held the call at the end of January with their chief medical officer and basically outlined the situation that we have today. So, and, you know, warned about what was to come globally. The numbers are pretty much, particularly in the United States, are right in line with, I re-listened to that January call because they taped it and shared it with the members on the call. I've helped them with their work in China. And basically what we have today in the United States very much corresponds with that January call. So I was here, I was working in Los Angeles, and as China was locked down and things started ticking up here towards the end of February, early March, I started getting calls from friends in the medical sector here. I have a good friend who is the head of oncology at KP, which provides 60% of the healthcare for Southern California. I started getting, my father was a doctor at Mass General. I started getting calls from hospitals and healthcare providers in Massachusetts and in New York. And then from friends in Washington who work in the State Department, the World Bank, they started actually in March lobbying the FDA to change the import restrictions on ventilators. And so basically, these are doctors and healthcare providers in the United States who were panicking because they didn't have masks, they didn't have PPE, they didn't have basics. So basically, I started working through the private sector in China, through my husband, through friends, through organizations like ByteDance and Alibaba and Tencent, who were very helpful in getting Robert Kraft, who's the owner of the New England Patriots. Tencent was very helpful in getting a plane landed so we could get PPE and masks here in Massachusetts. So this was all really company to company, people to people. And as was mentioned earlier, very rarely was there a shout out in the media or, you know, from the Trump administration saying thank you, because really I should put together all the thank you notes and emails that I received from healthcare providers in the U.S. who were recipients of the generosity of individuals and companies, or in terms of logistics. It was kind of a heroic effort for the New England Patriots plane to be able to land in Shenzhen for I think 12 hours to load it up with masks and get it back here to Massachusetts. And again, while that was covered in the media, immediately 3 or 4 days later, you know, there was questioning of whether the masks were good enough or not. I do think Governor Cuomo in New York, who did an excellent job of managing, you know, our Wuhan, our epicenter here in the United States, did give a shout out to Alibaba for their generosity, because they did step in at a critical moment early in New York to provide ventilators and PPE to hospitals. So, you know, despite the attitude and rhetoric, I mean, President Trump actually still refers to the virus as the Kung flu virus, which is just disgraceful. I'm sorry. And it's really, again, shocking to see somebody in a position of leadership, number one, not lead, but then also use that kind of language and ignorance to describe what is really, you know, a tragic situation here. So I think most people have don't rely. I mean, everybody, you know, most people listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci They don't listen to the president. The governors have, in some states, done a great job, and in other states, not done a terrific job. You see the massive surge in the virus in Texas, in Florida, where people don't wear masks. Another factor to the surge in the virus in the U.S. has obviously been the protests here, the Black Lives Matter protests, which follow the death of George Floyd. So while my heart goes out to those people who in the cause, it was clear that there was going to be a significant uptick in the virus in areas where there were massive protests. So Los Angeles is one of those locations where there were, tens of thousands of people protesting. So when you have tens of thousands of people out in the heat, sweating, shouting, they become transmitters. So that obviously contributed to the situation that we're having right now.
Okay.
I think that the NGOs who are participating here, whether it be AmCham or other medical foundations, individuals, companies, have a really important obligation right now to do the work that in forums like this, to do the work and communicate and share information and build programs, because in a time like this where there is a lack of leadership at the national level here in the United States, bridges have to be built elsewhere. One of the not to politicize, but one of the outcomes of the pandemic will be likely that there's the anticipation that there will be a change in leadership here in November. And there's already, I'm involved with a paper that is being organized by the Kennedy School at Harvard that has 7 prominent academics and prominent business people and some former diplomats that will probably be put out in October. And it's meant to serve as a policy document for a new administration. So, and these, because what you hear, if you watch, if you look at the U.S. media and the coverage of China, the Sino-U.S. relationship in particular, there's not a lot of good news at all. And so it diminishes the efforts that have been made over the past, 40 plus years. It diminishes the efforts of all the people, and thanks Kerr and thanks to AmCham, all the member companies and all the working individuals who day in and day out over time do the job. And it doesn't help to create a constructive environment. Dr. David Ho held a Zoom a number of weeks back, about 6 weeks ago, and he made a great point, and I'm just repeating that point here, which is that the lack of global leadership in addressing this pandemic leads us to the outcome that we have today, where there's a lot more illness and a lot more death, and then a lot more economic damage, and then a lot more mental health issues because people have anxiety and depression, which isn't talked about enough as a result of an ongoing uncertainty and challenging situation. So I would just say that we all have to be working harder. We have to be speaking to the media more, because we have to get a message out there that there are avenues and bridges to support communication, business. I've been in here for 6 months, which is the longest time I've been in the United States for the past 30 years. I'm going back to China on July 20th. I'm very excited to be heading back,
Okay.
but feel very, very committed to trying to, again, build bridges, informational bridges. I think that everybody wants to know about the vaccine, and I would, we should include the Center for Pandemic Prevention Innovation in this working group of organizations that is communicating about solutions around the pandemic. And again, until we have a vaccine, which hopefully is sooner rather than later, I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty and turbulence around the Sino-U.S. relationship. So again, everyone here has to work harder and do more to facilitate and to educate and to try to get things back onto a better track. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Didi, for your so late and also very from the NGO from perspective in the U.S. as well. Thank you for your time as well. I appreciate that. 那么下面呢，我想请这个龙教授，因为龙教授我知道你做了很多研究关于这个就华人华侨和留学生，我看过你的中文的报告，所以能不能请你介绍一下这个就是
You have cared a lot about Chinese Americans, like their work in contribution to the fighting against the virus. Professor Long is a professor of Tsinghua University. Is also the research institution's director of the Chinese commercials in abroad. He has a lot of titles. He's also CCG mentor for doctors. And Professor Long.
Okay.
Long,
thank you for your. Dear all, I had prepared the talk in Chinese. Sorry, I have to speak in Chinese because Huiyao didn't tell me to have the talk in English, and I'm afraid that there are some inaccurate statements in English, especially in a sensitive time. 我要谈的呢，那就是 Chinese American， 也就是美国华人在中美
like to talk about Chinese Americans
中的独特力量
contribution, a special force, like I would like to call it a special role for Chinese Americans to fighting against coronavirus.
第一点呢，就是报告中所谈到的，在双方抗疫互助中。 华人
talk about
不可替代的力量，这一点
Chinese Americans has been a very unique role there.
我得把这个英文的给它静音是吧？会不会有影响？没有影响。
Clear is clear, yes.
美国人民包括美国华人。 为支援武汉抗疫做出了重要的贡献。
And to support the Wuhan people, the Americans has done a lot contribution to support Wuhan people.
在抗疫之援助武汉的过程当中，他们克服了各种困难。
And in supporting the Wuhan people, they have conquered so many barriers, obstacles, and to do that.
非常的令人感动。
It's really touching stories for American people giving support to Wuhan people.
另一方面呢？ 中国人民支援美国抗疫
，Another part, Chinese people supporting the USA.
也是通过华侨华人。
A lot of people actually can do that only through the bridging by the Chinese Americans.
口罩还有中药，这方面
like traditional Chinese medicine or the medical equipment or the PPE is actually
或者说不太受理解的。
A lot of support has been given from China to USA and by the Chinese Americans. A lot of traditional Chinese medicine actually was not understood so well by American people to some extent.
当中它的作用不可忽视。
I think that is
两个方面，
cannot be ignored and for Chinese Americans' role in
二呢，
fighting against the coronavirus.
中美各自抗疫的经验教训。华侨华人在美国抗疫的过程当中，
Chinese Americans
一个是
fighting
个人
against the
第二
coronavirus.
呢，企业警觉，第三呢是社区互助，这使
The
得华侨华人
enterprises, the individuals,
当地新
and
冠
communities,
感染率
three levels of cooperation.
甚至在重灾区都创造了比较低
And
的感染
that means the social
所以个人自
distancing
律
among the Chinese Americans has
戴
been
口罩和在
comparatively low because they have been
所以企业
very active in
也
prevention
在他们
and
生意
for
最好的
coronavirus
季节期间，
infection. They wearing the
可能
masks
甚至
very
把
actively
业务关闭起来，而且自觉的做好。
and very disciplined
防护工作
our behavior of the
而所谓
Chinese
社区
Americans in the local level.
那
And
就是
creating some miracles for
各
the
地的
low
侨团
rate
他们
of
成
the
立热
infection
血
in that
协
place.
热血小组抗击疫情援助中心来介绍中国的抗疫经验。你比如说，
And they have organized several events for introduction
因
of the
为有
appearance
的人不太懂英文，所以他们以社区为单位来
and they have the community level of the forums of discussion on the
开展
appearance
线上的
sharing.
公益讲座等等。
And they have also organized several lecturers to
在这方面呢，
share with the local people
华侨
for
华人和
the
美国民
knowledge.
一起
That's
共
why
同
Chinese people and American people in local
应该说
level actually has
体现了一种
a
经验
lot of
分享
sharing
体现
and
了社会
mutual
责
help.
任担当。在这里，我就想讲一个考照的故事。
I would like to offer you a story on the mask.
华人最早戴口罩的，而且
Chinese
在
people,
口罩
Chinese
遇到了
Americans are wearing the mask at the very early stage.
甚至是一些 discrimination。
It sounds like
所以
discrimination.
有的华侨华
It
人就跟我
even
说，应该给
causes
他们
some
面子，我也不戴口罩嘛。
discrimination.
我说你千万不要那样，这不是面子的问题，而是性命的问题。
And do not feel like a disgrace for wearing a mask.
那为什
And
么
I convince them to
欧美
persuade
当
them and to
他们
wear the mask.
不愿意戴口罩呢？有的人说这是文化的差异，
And
我
some
说
people may
这
say
是
that's
错，
differences of
因为我
culture.
个人
And
说
I do not
在
think
中
that's
国
a cultural
不戴
difference.
口罩，最早的是在北京雾霾天气当中的。
A very beginning
所谓老
stage
外。
of wearing the mask is for the foreign
在雾
people
霾当中，
started to wearing the
我们没
mask
什么事
at the
儿，
very
可是
beginning
他们
stage.
戴起了口罩
Actually, the，
所以当
foreigners
时候我们
actually
感
are wearing
觉，
the mask
这
before
是
the
这
Beijing
是
people
中北
wearing the mask
中
to
西文
for
化差异，他
prevention
们喜
of
欢
the
戴口罩，
damage of
中国
the
人不喜欢戴。
smog in Beijing. Our Chinese
所以
people actually
这
do
是
not like
这
to
是
wear the mask during the heavy
一
smog.
误解。所以为什么欧美政客甚至于专业的人士，
Otherwise, some
面对
politicians and
中国抗
Americans
疫的一个最大的经验就是戴口
politicians
罩，他们不
think
愿意接收呢？
that do not accept
我对
such
这
a
是
very advice wearing the mask,
我不愿
simple
意
solution
说
to
他
prevent
们有偏见或
the
者傲慢。
coronavirus infection.
你看现在改变了，在美国，
That was a
各地
bias.
都要
That
求
was
强制性的这个戴口罩。
a bias. That was injustice.
这
And
其实是
now
一
it
个
come to be turning into like mandatory
所以
rules to
华
wear
侨
the
华人
mask
在美
in
国
some
最
states.
早戴口罩，是克服了相当大的
The
压力，
Chinese Americans
但是他们
were
是
wearing the masks. They
应该说
have
做
they
出了
had been
贡献。
meeting a lot of huge
当然
pressure,
不只是这
huge
些，
pressure
然后
there.
呢，他们派发口罩给当地
And
捐
then the allocated
物资
resources of the mask to the
联系
local
中
level,
国国内的这些捐赠者，这
and
是
they communicated with local donators,
第三点呢，那就是华侨华人
and to
都进来
bridge for the
做
local
出的报道
resources to
甚至
arrive
为
to the local level.
理性发声，促进中国和美国的交流和友谊。
The second very important role, I think that
对
Chinese
中
Americans
国国
are
内
bridging between China-USA
遇
communication.
到的是美国的一些不准确的信息，而
There are a lot of
把
fake news, a lot of rumors about USA
避免。
authorities.
同时呢，在美国的媒体当中也
And
有一
also in American press, there are a lot of fake news and misguiding news
而
of China.
华侨华人他们了解
But
中
our Chinese Americans actually are correcting the fake news, are correcting this misguiding
对我们
information
说华侨
and
华人的
to
作用是
offer a more transparent and objective
第四点，
insight
我的
on
另一个深刻感
China.
那就
The
是
first,
全球化是各国紧密连接，而这
globalization is for connection between all the countries.
不可分割的
这个中美民间交流当中。
And for Chinese Americans, a very crucial role for the joint between the people-to-people connections
大家
for
知
the
道，
two
这个
countries.
消毒液最大的产地在武汉。
You know, the regional production places of the disinfection liquid were
最大的
made
产地在中国。
in Wuhan.
最开始，欧美他们就担心口罩不够。
The masks mostly were produced in China, Europe, and Americans worry about the masks production.
全球化离不开。
Globalization is a way for solution for the mask supply.
居损，以人居人，事实上是相互离不开的。
It's like we sharing the glory, we sharing
国界
the
成为了
suffering.
国交流的
There's no border for that part.
更重要的，甚至更可怕的是，经济保护主义有抬头。
The protectionism is
而这
rising.
个国家
It's
保
very
护
horrible.
抗击疫情是
So
有害的，
protectionism is very negative for the
对于
fighting
中国
against the coronavirus.
造成了伤害，可以
Very
说
damage for
是
the
加伤的。很多中国
people.
企业没有了
And
美国
that's
的
like
订单，
the
所以它就
snow
得
plus
停工，
frost.
对
It
吧？
makes things
而美
worse.
国呢，现在陷入了经济萎缩，
America
这个
is
时候
at a
如
stage
果
of
它跟
shrinking
中国
economy.
来切割，那么对它的经济复苏，应该说也是一
I
个
think for recovery economy, that's very important if we can do more on that part.
所以双方政府应该
I think that
也
two
是
governments
爱，
should
而
join
华
hands.
侨华人作为中美连接的一个重要的桥
And
梁，
the Chinese Americans are very
他
crucial
们
bridging
才能够发挥更
and
好。
joint. I think they can play even more
中
important role on
心
that part.
我们清华大学华商研究中心组织了华商抗疫的在线交
And
流。
our Tsinghua University of
在这种
the
敏感的时候，有一些华人
Chinese merchants in
原来
abroad,
比较活跃的，他们不愿意参加演讲了，他
and
们
some
敏感。
some Chinese Americans are not willing to deliver speech. A lot of sensitive topic there.
的差异需要相互理解。
I think that we can use very tools, inclusiveness, openness to conquer the barriers
所以今天的
for
论
the
坛
protectionism.
非常好的。
I think that today's
看到
forum is very important, very
他在
meaningful.
谈到为什么疫情向美国扩散，没有向北京扩散？
Why the coronavirus is spreading to
我们做
USA,
出了
not to
多大的
Beijing?
牺牲？
You don't know about the sacrifice behind that.
出门不下楼，
Think about 3 months without going off your
这是
own building.
多大的这种牺牲
Imagine
担当。
what a
中
huge
国家庭
sacrifice it
360
is.
60平米，2间房、2、3间
We
房，
only got 2 rooms, 2 bedrooms, such a small
有
area,
小
like
孩都
only
了。
scores of square meters. We
说起来
got
是
the
人
seniors living there, we got
所以
children living
中国
there.
抗疫的
Such a
成功
sacrifice.
付
You
出了民
cannot
众
leave
很
your
深的。
building for 3 months. Think about such a sacrifice.
那
for
美
Chinese
国当然
people.
跟中国不一样，它有这多元
Differences between
化
China
的多
and
元化
USA
更强。
on
所
this
以呢
part.
有一些政客、有一些媒体所
And
发出的
some
声音，
media and
应
some
该说不代
press,
表美国的全
and
体。
some media, some press has misleading
所以这
information.
个确实
Actually,
有
that's
些障碍，我
not
们相信
representing
到
the true information.
而中国呢，中国的这个媒体也有一些媒体
And there are some Chinese media
太恰当。
were also misrepresenting the American
这个中美
information.
文化的差异突出的表现在这个中药。
The
中药
culture between the
中国
China-U.S. is
最大的
actually, in my idea, is embodied in the
但是
traditional
在美
Chinese
国呢，
medicine.
因为他在学理上，他们可能
Because in
还不知
USA,
道解
the
释
way to think on that part is mainly about physical analysis of the body
到美
parts.
国的时候，可能就受到了不恰当。
We presenting the traditional Chinese medicine to the USA, probably there are a lot of misunderstanding on the effect of that.
好，最后一句话，那就
And
是
last conclusion,
中美民间的交流，尤其
people
是
to
美国
people
华人将会
communication,
一如既往的克服各种
Chinese American will continue to conquer
就
all
走
the
进
obstacles
向扶手，为抗击疫情和经济复
to
兴
do their part
他们的贡献，
for
要
fighting against
借鉴中国以及美国的抗疫
coronavirus,
经验
to bridge
教训，
closer between the US and
帮
China,
助我们尽
to
快的
learn from the lessons,
预
to
期。
recover.
当然，在这里也需要我们这个美国的华人，他们
We need Chinese Americans to be
我们
active
美国的民众
and to be safe first,
保障自身的
and
安全。
to be safe first. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Long, for your very unique perspective on the American Chinese and also overseas Chinese role, and how they actually locally perform their anti-pandemic performance which has a lot of reference to people in both countries. Thank you for your observation and a great summary of that. So we have now heard the academic, and I'd like to go back to our business perspective again. I know we have a global vice president from Qualcomm is with us today. Guo Tao, you have many years of multinational experience. I mean, over 20 years. So I know that technology, high tech, this pandemic fighting process. So maybe you can share your unique perspective as well. Mr. Guo, please open your mic.
Yeah, Henry, thank you very much for inviting Qualcomm and myself to join this, discussion. Since I prepare my remarks in Chinese, so I would like to transfer my introduction to Chinese, if you don't mind.
No problem.
OK， 非常感谢 CCG 邀请高通公司和我本人呢参加今天的这个报告发布会。我认为呢 ，CCG 和全国友协开展的这个研究呢，是一个非常有意义的项目。我事先呢，这个非常仔细，读了报告，有很多感受。但是
very carefully, very touching for me. To conclude that is like borderless virus, kindness, cooperation, borderless. Very detailed information and data to show that China-U.S. people-to-people cooperation, and for some institutions, good cases, and it has very description, including Qualcomm, in fighting against the virus, has made a very contribution. I would like to represent the cooperation and to say thank you so much for saying that. It's just like about in the report has saying that about the traditional friendship between the two countries, we need to continue that. I would like to center on several aspects. First, about Qualcomm's success, mainly because of partnership between China and American partners. And we are semiconductors producing mainly for design of the chips and for the licensing of the technologies, and cooperation with the supply chains, mainly with a lot of engagement of our supply and commitment. We have long chain. We have Taiwan, Samsung, and ZTE, all suppliers for us. Behind them, they have downstream, upstream, and for packaging corporations. And there are Singapore corporations and Europe corporations. So Qualcomm is a multinational chain embodiment, very global corporation. We always position ourselves as an engine for research. We have input a lot of resources for the early stage of research. In the past 35 years, Qualcomm Corporation research input is more than $61 billion, covering all different aspects of telecommunication. Through licensing and supplying of the chips, we have assured that technology can be spreading very fast. And to let more and more Chinese corporations can enter into the industry very fast. And through analysis, cooperation, coordination on our part, and to combine all the researching results with applications to let more partners enter into the communication sector, and to enhance very positive competition and to benefiting the consumers there. And Qualcomm with Chinese telecommunication carriers, leaders, and local levels, multi-layers cooperation, not only about expansion market in China, but also supporting Chinese carriers to go abroad to explore the market in Europe and North America, and so on. Actually, our contribution to coronavirus, that is very small part of the people-to-people cooperation. After founding in 1935, that we have started a lot, we have initiated launching a lot of philosophies and charity for social responsibility behavior. In January 29, we donated 7 million RMB to the Chinese institutions for coronavirus. After that, in January 29, receivers, and China's Red Cross has been cooperating with them very closely. And also 20 vehicles and for ambulance vehicles has been sent to Hubei province, to Wuhan, Xiaogan, and all these several institutions, other places has been allocating other vehicles. And 2,000 of PPEs, suits, actually also like in 28th has been given to the doctors in the local hospitals in Wuhan to ensure that they can have protection while saving people. And they have been changing the traditional ways of the educations into remote education, allows remote areas, and they have difficulties for education. We want to guarantee that the remote area students can learn more from the good resources. So through our Chinese Foundation of Children Care, we donated several notebooks, computers, and the to ensure the teachers in these areas can have run remote courses well. And one is about prevention diseases, and another hand is about the recovery, the work. And Qualcomm are working with the consumers and to conduct businesses for remote working, such like during the coronavirus stage in Jiangxi, Nanchang, Hangzhou, China. We have the co-innovation centers and 5G center, VR, XR, for ecosystems of building with our Xiaomi online and to release their product on our part. Apart from that, our Qualcomm venture capital in beginning of the June, and for the 3 major technology corporations, we have input into the place of 5G AI for application investment into this innovation, SME. Sister corporations, we have invested into sister corporations. I noticed that for the sister cities, for sister states in China and the USA, and Qualcomm not only to make contributions for China's prevention of coronavirus, but also we make our donations to Americans for $1 million and San Diego for the fragile people. And also for United Nations Fund, we have donated to that part for acquiring to buy more materials, PPE, and to donate the notebook for the school education. And also we launching the events for the 25 SMEs in USA for customized mobile solutions for them. And to this point, I would like to emphasize that different from the same to the other multinational corporations, it's not just the deed we have done during the coronavirus, it is who we are. And since 2006, we have the wireless care. Since 2006, mainly for this wireless, fragile or weakness places, like we take care of them across 47 countries, including 17 projects in China. For women care, for public safety, security, environment protection, poverty alleviation, 17 projects in China. And also China, we have been working with China for the poverty alleviation, for industry poverty alleviation, and education poverty alleviation. Basically is working with the Chinese people, and I know Director Shen is here representing the CPAFFC President Shen is here, and we are working with the Chinese government authorities to bring that to the Chinese ancient Chinese for the revolution of the Communist Party of China places, and to bring all this technology equipment to the places, the right places, and to enhance the quality for education, and to assure that can be really effective to help the local remote education for that. And also we have been working on helping poverty alleviation for agricultural industries sector that's very base for the food supply, and to help the poverty district and the municipalities to help the poor cities and municipalities to upgrade their project agriculture in Guangxi, Xinjiang, Yunnan, for the 4 major pilot zones project and mainly use our foundations and through the way of communication, community cooperation center to have further combination with our new high tech with the local agricultural sectors to evaluate to help them to produce a more effective or smart agricultural industry. A third part, Qualcomm with the China-U.S. think tanks, we are playing our positive role. And I noticed that in the report, to deepen the cooperation people to people, after the coronavirus, the first priority is mainly for stimulus for economy, recovery economy, to enhance the trading between the China and U.S. very crucial. And I myself agree with it a lot, that trading is always the most important base and driver booster for the China-U.S. relationship. For the China-U.S. economic cooperation is most crucial for positive trend for the two nations and to reduce the pressure for the confliction or disputation for trade. I think that Qualcomm cooperation, semiconductor sectors at very frontier, and we have a fully understanding of globalization because we have a lot of labor division from design, from production, packaging, testing to the final product, from upstream to downstream. In our view, we have been always working on globalization, and we will be the leader and practitioner and booster for that part for globalization. People-to-people cooperation for this field, cooperation we have built a very platform that part. Globalization, internationalization is a very trend. In the near future, digital economy and upgrading of the industries will be, to some extent, need the two governments and the industry insiders to join more, to cooperate more. And I believe that China-USA in technology cooperations, industries, they are complementary. That is very determinant for the future opportunity. And we have offered a lot of suggestions here. Such a report, if I understand it right, which is boosted by the CFFPD, I think that mutual trust and mutual confidence need a lot of help for the suggestions of think tanks among the two countries. And I believe such a research project between the think tanks of the two countries, we will be launching all this together to ensure that's more comprehensive and more global view. In the past 3 years, especially for coronavirus stage, and with all think tanks, academies, we have made a lot of trials on that part. With CCG, we have more than 10 major think tanks in China, and we have hosted several researching centered on the innovations for 5G applications in AI, for connections of vehicles, or for other type of incubation centers, and to ensure Chinese economy can be transforming. And we have done several discussions that part, offer suggestions that part. Qualcomm are supporting with all we can for our think tanks between China and USA for further researching and for proposal of new ideas. Apart from that, for merchandise or commercial level communication are very crucial. Apart from this report, the think tanks between the two countries can organizing the leaders of the companies, entrepreneurs to have a mutual discussion on our part, especially after the end of coronavirus. And we can organize like mutual visiting of the entrepreneurs, and Qualcomm are very willing to do our part for that. And I understand that for CFFPD can help the foreign entrepreneurs to get into China, to visit each other, to help the China youth living in poverty, and to visit, to train, and to help them to get more understanding on the future project in abroad. I think all these programs can be done and can be practical between the cooperation of think tanks among the two countries. In that way, we will to play the full role people-to-people communication, diplomacy. That's a very strong base and very earthy, very practical as an end to conclude that. I think that today's report is a very important sorting for that part and a very important base for the mutual communication and for very for boosting the cooperation, the very important advice. And for American chambers and Qualcomm, we are very good friends. And I would like to represent our Qualcomm to express our attitude for the future. With you, your institutions, we will do our part. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Gao. You have a detailed, very vivid speech.
A multinational been actively engaged in the pandemic fighting, between China and the U.S., and then your role in promoting that, supporting of each other. So thank you again for your sharing. Now, because we're also quite late and running out of time, but I would like to have our perspective from a think tank, from also business as well. Marlo Cavallo, you've been in Wuhan, you've been in Shenyang. I know that you lived in China for 21 years and quite a China observer. And but also particularly you on February 5th, you published this Something Not Right Here, folks, which has got over 3 million on LinkedIn, 2 million, 2 to 3 million. But actually, CCG, the WeChat portal has transmitted that. We got over 10 million on our portal, so it's quite impressive. Why don't you share your perspective as also a private sector, but maybe keep your time as well. Yeah, thank you. So, Mauro, please.
Very well. President Wang, thank you, and congratulations to CCG and CPA-FFC for doing a great job on this report. I'll make my remarks very direct, very quick, very brief. I'm thinking about the fact that we're all looking at the conditions, the challenges, and the prospects as the report focuses on. And I appreciate all the previous remarks, understanding the need to focus on the reality, which is that here on the ground, none of us have anything to do with the political the toxicity of the political situation and also the media. But the fact of the matter is that organizations like AmCham, and by the way, I'm a member of AmCham. I just renewed my membership. I have been a member for many years. I appreciate everything that AmCham is doing, and that's the first thing that I want to say. Because why? Because we are all businesses, which means we're also all people, families, moms and dads, grandmas and grandpas, and kids in schools like mine, my 9-year-old boy. This is what we care about. We're on the ground together, and we need to work on all of these things as SMEs, as multinational corporations. And, in my new book on China, which is coming out very shortly, I'm doing a great focus, as you understand from the article as well. We're talking about recognizing China's achievements. And when we talk about recognizing China's achievements, I don't mean the broad perspective so much as to say we learned that the achievements are possible because they're rooted in the priorities of governance. And if you look at all the previous 5-year plans, that we see that the safety and stability of the society is always very, very high on the list of priorities and an integral part of the planning in all the 5-year plans. Now, in the West, we understand there's a neoliberal excess interest in freedom and what this word freedom means. And they think that means that if you have too much of a focus on the society, that you lose your personal freedoms. But what they fail to understand is that, in fact, and the pandemic response in China proved this to be the case, the safety and stability of a society actually supports and is a prerequisite for your being able to express your personal freedoms. Now, I want to move on to a more specific point about that, which is that to say health, safety, and stability in the society means civic duty and sacrifice. We've seen that just most recently in Beijing. I just did a story on it on CGTN again, and we saw it because what did we see? We saw infections, and we immediately saw quick management and excellent control by contact tracing and then quarantine. That means some sacrifice in your civic duty because no one wants to be quarantined. I returned from Beijing after 2 days of Beijing. They said to me, hey, we want you to quarantine. Nobody likes to do that, but it's your civic duty and it's your sacrifice. It's part of the success. It's part of the message. It's buried in the report, and I know that it is. It means in terms of corporations and companies, the American and the Chinese, in China and especially in the United States, HR function is very important to put together the right policies to say, here's what we need to do in terms of hygiene, in terms of face mask wearing, safety in the office. And the leaders of the companies need to lead by example. Policy implementation needs to be there. And let's not forget that all of these companies together, both Chinese and American, as was noted earlier, have made tremendous donations and tremendous support. I'll stop there. I want to close by saying CGTN just asked me to start up a new series of articles and videos. I want to focus, I'd love to hear the stories on what has happened so that I can share them on the air. And what I want to focus on, I believe, is this. People need and want to know what is simple, what is the truth, and what do people need to know moving forward. It's not easy, but we're going to get there. And thank you again, everyone. Great to be here with all of you. And to all of my 朋友们, 亲爱的朋友们, 我是马义军, 谢谢大家. Thank you, bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Mary, for a quick and very precise message. I think we heard very clearly. Of course, also you summarized the experience of China so far, what has been able to contain, culture and government effectiveness, and also civil cooperation, and also sacrifice in order to achieve the common good for everyone. So thank you for your very good summary. But last but not least, I would also like to invite our Professor Ye. He's actually a well-known doctor, actually based in Wuhan, and we have invited him because we had a doctor from Beijing. We also want to have a doctor from Wuhan. He's the hematologist, Renmin Hospital of Wuhan University, and he actually set up a global fighting pandemic doctors WeChat group, which attracted 2,500 frontline doctors fighting COVID-19. So, but because of our time, I know you also stay very long. So maybe briefly, can you share a bit about your observation on how people to people in the private sector, particularly through individuals like you, in fighting pandemic? Dr. Ye, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. And I'm very thankful for the organizer and the CCG and the Association for Friendship with Other Countries. Right? Okay, my name is Bai Jingye. I'm a medical doctor from Renmin Hospital of Wuhan University. And Renmin Hospital of Wuhan University is a central hospital for combating COVID-19 in Wuhan. And Wuhan University, and in this battle with the COVID-19, and their students and their aliens, and they take a critical role in this combating COVID-19. And the first time, I want to introduce my personal experience during this COVID-19 outbreak. The second part, I want to introduce the successful experience of Wuhan to this can be benefit the Americans battle run. And the first part, and I at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, I was staying in America and studying America as a visiting scientist. And at that time, especially at the beginning of the COVID-19 outbreak, and I organized the cooperate with the American people and to help Wuhan's doctors. That's very important. I was studying in the America, and I came back to China in the middle of the March. During my stay in America, and I got much help from American professor, faculty, friends, and many other people. American people are very friendly and warmly hearted. I think that's a very important basis for China and America good relationship. And at the early stage of COVID-19 pandemic, I was also a volunteer in America and cooperate with American friends every day to collect and donate the medical materials for Wuhan doctors. Our effort provided much important support for Wuhan's combating COVID-19. So I'm very thanks Americans' support. At that time, I was very deeply moved by the American people's warm heart, the sense of responsibility, and a big help to Chinese people. Then, in late March, when COVID-19 has also spread in America, I came back to Wuhan and then sponsored a series of projects for helping the doctors in other countries, including America. For example, and with the help of our volunteers member, I sponsored the donation of medical materials. The doctor experienced a very tough time 2 weeks ago, and then they actively donated their money and materials for American and other country doctors. And when American doctor received Wuhan doctor's donation, all of them felt very happy, very moved. Their feeling is very like the Wuhan doctor. So I think the common things very important for building the good relationship between the two countries. And I also sponsor a chat room in the platform of WeChat app and promoted the sharing of Wuhan doctors' experience and knowledge. According to my personal experience and a lot of messages from American doctors, they want to know how to confront with COVID-19. And so I find that that's very important to create a bridge between two countries' medical community. And then the Wuhan's experience can be very quickly transmitted to America. And they find that they are very confident for combating this pandemic. So to some extent, our effort positively benefits other countries' doctors at early stage of this pandemic. And some Wuhan doctors usually told me, the world helped us before. Now we should also help them. I think the communication between two countries' doctors provide an important basis for building the friendship. This is just a simple story I experienced in the past days. And the second part, I think, facing the spreading of COVID-19 pandemic, we hope American and other countries which are still falling in their COVID-19 trouble can overcome the big disaster quickly. I believe that cooperation is much more important than any other things. For the people around all the countries, we should join together and cooperate to control the COVID-19 spread as soon as possible. Now I want to share Wuhan's successful experience for combating COVID-19 and hope to provide some meaningful information and suggestions for
I think that maybe we'll have 1 minute of its time. Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think through the, according to my experience in America, I find that wearing facial masks, keeping social distance is very important. Thank you. I hope in the future, America can overcome the pandemic very quickly and cooperate with China to overcome this pandemic and cooperate to develop the economic of work. I believe that tomorrow will become better and better, and we should keep the confidence for combating this disaster. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ye, and appreciate your personal experience, particularly in sharing knowledge at epicenter in Wuhan. You know, all the first hand, and with 2,500 doctors in your group. So appreciate that, and you are one of the examples of how private an individual that can exercise a big influence as well. So before we conclude, actually, I would like to invite Director General Shen Xin. I mean, he is the Director General of American Oceania Department of the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries. He's been very supportive. He and his colleagues are very supportive and be participating, and also particularly given those cities provincial state arrangement, they are actually the front actually runner in leading that effort as well. So I think that it's really great that he has spent so much time with us today, and I would like to invite Director Sun to say a few words as well.
Okay, to conclude, I would like to thank all the participants, all the panelists for their valuable comments and observations. I think all of us agree that the China-U.S. relationship is very important. Actually, this relationship serves fundamental interests of the two peoples, and the people-to-people cooperation between our two countries is also very important. Of course, today we face a lot of challenges and the difficulties. So our association would like to work with all the media, all the think tanks, all the businesses of the two countries to get our voices to be heard, to be louder than those irrational or sensational voices in the U.S. And this report, actually, I think serves a very good start for our cooperation, and I look forward to work with you in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Sim, for your great summary and very, very precise. We have probably a few minutes time. Since we have still some guests online, we may have a few questions we collect from our media, and so maybe I'll share some of those questions. We have China Newsweek magazine. Was asking basically saying that as AmCham and for Alan and the key that because of China-U.S. relations now getting quite tight, also tense between the governments. So how the business community can further that to strengthen the exchanges and the views exchanges and the cooperation. So views from AmCham. What's your perspective? Perhaps Alan, you are still around. You can give some share on that.
Sure. Well, I think it's actually, in some respects, quite simple. We stick to the facts, and we have a sizable member base, and through our surveys, data collection, and kind of the literally thousands of interactions that we have. So we have a good fact base. We stick to the facts. When we communicate both to the Chinese government and to the U.S. government. And one of our jobs is to be balanced. And that means sharing the good news when there's good news to share, and being honest to both governments when there's not good news to share. And, it's through that I think over time, that we earn respect, and can serve as a valuable resource, to both governments. And then I think secondly is we're very clear about the role that we play, in that we stay in our lane, what we refer to as staying in our lane. So we're focused on the commercial and the economic aspects of the relationship, not on the political aspects of the relationship. And I would say that includes the whole notion of national security in both countries. And but we want to have national security defined as narrowly as possible, and as reasonably as possible. So that broadens the space for business, in China, and then for Chinese companies to have business in the U.S. So it's as simple as that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have another question actually from CNBC asking. Currently on the fighting pandemic, if China and U.S. Technologically decoupled, would that be difficult, or would that impact the collaboration in the private sector? Again, for our AmCham friends, is that the right question?
Yeah. Well, if I understand, I'm happy to sort of jump in on that one. If I understand the question correctly, it's like, given the challenges around, especially around technology and the potential for, further decoupling, will that impact the pandemic management globally, and I think between the two countries? And I would say the answer, at least in my view, is yes. And a lot of this starts with information. There needs to be free information flows between both countries to be able to share information, freely. If you don't have that, then obviously, it becomes hard to, to have effective, management of the pandemic, whether it be in China, whether it be in the U.S., or whether that be globally.
Okay, maybe we'll open the floor. Maybe we have reporters around, the journalists. Anybody wants to ask? CGTN, we have CGTN. You stay here. I will amplify for that.
Our question is also for AmCham China. So, for AmCham China said it has 600 million RMB worth of sent to China. And what does that number say about business community's sentiments or their feeling about China-U.S. situation? And we have a second question, also a follow-up question, is that how they were saying AmCham China will work on social impact in the next few months. What is the goal? Do they anticipate China and U.S. to be able to work in the future, given the strength of China-U.S. relations?
So I hope you hear that there's a question from CGTN that was asking that you have mentioned about 600 million donation of AmCham members. So how that actually going to 这个问题是什么？那个会帮助他们吗？ Okay, so that represents quite a significant common objective and wishes from the business community. So would that be reflected in the Sino-U.S. relations? That's part one. Part two is that given the China the members 我再重复一下，我一下。哦。 So also for the next few months, what do you see how AmCham and business community have some impact on China-U.S. relations? And that's basically the CGTN2 question.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I think let me try to summarize that. Well, first is to reinforce this estimate of 600 million RMB of donations that we've been able to identify. That's what we've been able to document, from our member companies. But I know, that is a low figure, probably several times larger than that. And I think what it really represents is the U.S. business community's understanding and appreciation that we are part of Chinese society. We have been here, companies have been here for decades and plan to be here for the next 100 years. So we are part of Chinese society. So when society is under pressure and has challenges, then it's our duty, to step up and contribute in any way that we can. So in terms of what we'd like to do in the next, at least in the next 6 months, if not longer, is to move away from just the tactical aspect of providing, monetary or equipment contributions, but to really make contributions that are arguably more sustainable. And this is what I had mentioned briefly in my remarks, that there's two key areas that we feel that we can contribute through our member companies' capabilities in China and globally. First is in the area of public health reforms, whether that be adopting global best practices, whether they come from the U.S. or any other part of the world, tapping into global expertise, and seeing how we can contribute to China accelerating public health reforms that, for the most part, have already been laid out in terms of China's visions and strategies, but how do we really accelerate those in light of COVID-19? And then the second area that we are planning to focus on is helping small, medium-sized companies. And this is primarily through work that we would plan to do with policymakers to provide real-time practical suggestions and ideas on how the Chinese government can more effectively and efficiently support small, medium-sized enterprises that are obviously facing huge challenges at the moment, whether those be cash flow challenges, whether those be human resource challenges, or other types of challenges. The Chinese government has, developed a whole range of policies in terms of providing different types of monetary support, mainly through the banking system. However, the effectiveness, and I'm sure we have colleagues from, I believe, from Tsinghua University that might be able to contribute here, the effectiveness of that funding isn't really as high as it needs to be. So we're hoping to sort of complement what China's trying to do already and provide support in a very practical, real-time way.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Alan. I think probably we're really falling greatly behind schedule, and we will probably have to we'll end here. And once again, I think we have conducted a very meaningful and timely webinar, and particularly in releasing this report on the China and U.S. non-government sectors joint efforts in fighting the COVID-19, and this report is done by CCG, but with great support from Chinese Friendship Association with foreign countries, and also the foundation, China Friendship Foundation for Peace and Development, which great support. So we've been able to conduct this research. I think the timing couldn't be better, because we see so many negative sentiment across Pacific on a daily basis. We need some good news, and we also encourage more people looking at the positive sectors. I mean, even at the federal level, we have some very negative sentiment. Also, the election is coming up, but on the state and municipality, and particularly on the business level, and also academic, medical, professional, and as well as the foundations, NGOs, chambers, multinationals, and all have played an enormous role in safeguarding this people-to-people exchange. I think, as Alan said, is right. We are now in this turbulent time, and we really have to work together to fighting our common enemy. We from pandemic, climate change. We have so many reasons to work together, rather than quarrel with each other. So really, again, I want to thank our panelists very much today. I want to thank our colleagues from Friendship Association, and also we want to thank all our media. We have over 20 media participate this afternoon from both China and internationally. So thank you all very much, and also our CCG fellows and staff. I appreciate all of your participation, and we hope that this report will send some positive and signify some new changes in the bilateral relation. Once again, thank you. So we'll end our webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.